Uh, okay. So I already. No, this is the second video. I posted a video about ChronoJet post restriction list a few days ago. Um, this one's about Shiranui post restriction list. Not gonna lie, I love Shiranui. I think this is like the second or third premium deck I build, but I also never had Crest in here because, as I said, I'm not a piece of shit. But I feel like now that Crest is gone, it used to just be, oh, go into History Stride, ride your Crest, win the game, or if you couldn't find History Stride, call your Sezui's as boosters and then use your Ride Fixer to make your opponent discard everything. But now that we have a restriction list, it's kind of funny because Crest is sort of still a viable option in nubatama. There are two routes you can go with Crest nubatama. You can either you have to stop playing History Collection Shiranui because that is illegal. Or I don't have a Zonky yet, but you can play a Shiranui's final grade 3 form, which is a Shiranui Zonky. It says on place or beginning of your stride phase. Let me just pull it up. The whole gist of Zonky is you can still use Crest. You won't be able to history stride, but it has domination as strong as this one. Arguably stronger because it also does offer board control. Let me pull it up. Zonky. Shiranui Zonky is a $25 card that says dominate Vanguard during your turn when this unit is placed on Van or when your G unit stride. Choose up to one of any player's rear guards and it gets plus 2000 till end of turn. If that is your opponent's rear guard, stand it and dominate it and attack your opponent's other unit. And then the second skill is Auto Vanguard. At the beginning of your ride phase, you may pay the cost. If you do draw a card, all fighters choose a card from their hands and call them to read. Your opponent cannot activate the auto abilities of cards called due to this effect until end of turn. So essentially, it is hand rip, and it also lets you still dominate even when you're not striding. Um, and then the second option that you can run, I was gonna give my opinion, but not yet. You can just run Vishuner. I have him because I like Vishuner. Um, so he says continues Van during your turn. If you two more cards in your soul with Shiranui in their card names, I'll explain that later. This unit gets 15 till end of turn, and you perform drive checks for the battles. Your Mask of Domination token attacks, and then it says act Vanguard once per turn. CB1 discard a card from your hand. Choose a unit card from your opponent's rearguard or drop zone and bind it. If you bound a card, call a Mask of Domination token to your back row rearguard center, and until end of turn, that token gets the original grade, power, crit, and abilities of the card bound by that effect. You can attack from your back row center rear. At the end of the turn, remove that token. So why some people are opting for this Shiranui is first off, it's a 13k base with crest still. Ignore that 12. And the whole way you get into him is with the other Vishiranui. Vishiranui, quite literally just when you ride it, or if it's on van, you discard a card from hand, search out this Shiranui. So you still get your two force protect markers. So you still have like defensive options. I don't think it's worth it. Sure, there's like some decks that can aggro, but this format, there's not a lot of decks that could do like superior call shenanigans. You won't be able to get a good unit off of the dominate token. And it's easy to get token, I mean shooting losing your soul, but I still don't think it's worth it. Crest is still good. Crest is still good. I need to say that. But I do think the most consistent version of Shiranui right now is non-crest Shiranui because you don't care who you ride into, you don't care what grade twos you ride into, you just care that you find Obro and then you start Rinne. Um, one thing that this deck does differ from is Crestless G Obero also does run the token engine, which means you can go into strides like a Jaku Meso, which means you gain hand advantage, your Vanguard has power and crit, and you get to activate units skills that say when they're called back to hand. Um, I do think this deck is the most suited out of any of the Shiranuis for the long game. Yeah, I mean, I make hands, I make tokens. My units always go back to my hand. I have a few cards in here that are kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, I do have like three proxies in here that I'll explain, but this deck is good. Anyway, I'm here to give people a description on what the deck looks like without crest. Okay, intro aside, finally fucking start. So I play four copies of G-Era Shiranui Obro, four copies of V-Era Stealth Dragon Shiranui, and then four copies of the Heel Guard. So I'm gonna keep it simple. This Shiranui, basically, you mainly use him as your draw engine. But with his skill earlier, let's say you do go first and you brick on Oboro, you discard a card from your hand, and then you get to search out Oboro and write it on your Vanguard circle. So yeah, you do miss history collection, but you never whiff on Oboro. What's consistent is that you will never whiff on Oboro. Maybe history collection, but you will never whiff on Oboro. And there are two cards in this deck that matter if you dominated something this turn. So yeah, he's a good card. Also, he's a soul engine, and he also does control. Let's say my opponent plays a Holly, I can swing with him, shove him into my soul, draw a card. He also gets 10k on swing, and then I choose a card on my opponent's rear guard and bounce it back to their hand. If they have Holly, bye. Good card. I do think he's worth the 4. I don't know what I'd run in replacement. I used to run him at 3, but then they banned Mizukage, so just kind of like, what do I do? But yeah, I run four Shiranui Oboro because first off, our history collection stride only works with Shiranui Oboro, which it's not that bad of a card. Its first skill is Vanguard. At the beginning of the ride phase, I choose a card from my opponent's drop zone, and they call it to any rearguard circle. But that do I activate? They do activate auto abilities, and then at the end of the turn, um that unit retires. So I get to choose whatever the fuck I want to call from my opponent's job. They could activate some abilities, but as long as you're like not dumb about it, you should be fine. And then after that, its second skill, which is the main skill, is his dominate skill. He says when you stride on him while he's on Vanguard Circle, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, stand it, dominate it, and it gets 4k until end of turn. And then hey, you just attack your opponent's other unit with it. This is literally just it's Shiranui. There's nothing to explain in here like my Chrome Engine video. It's just this is dominate Shiranui Crestless. I can't explain much. I will say the history strat turn is really consistent, and because of the options we run in here, you never have nothing to do. And then I run four heal guard. Um, I've never found I ran out of resources. There will be some times where I run out of resources, and of course you can run stuff to mitigate that, like the heal counter charge, soul charge cards. But I don't know. I'm still yet to find a need for them. And then here's where my list differs from some Crest builds. I'm not even playing Crest. This is just sheer Crest list. This is four copies of Yamishibuki, three copies of Magatsu Gale. Is it Gale? Magatsu Gale, yep. Uh, two copies of Stealth Dragon Seke from D series, not the other one that restands. Two copies of your Ride Fixer, and then one copy of Ungai. So, let me explain all these. Everything over here, technically this and a half, is strictly for pressure. These, well, okay, one, two, three, four, 3.5 of these cards are for pressure. Um, this grade 2 lineup is mainly for draw power and consistency. Uh, Also it has some aggro. They all one, two, three, four of these units all get power. That's how many units? Oh my god, I can't do math right now. 8 of my 12 grade 2s all have power. So, feel me? You're never stressed whenever it comes to power. The only other, the grade 2s that don't get power are the ride fixers, but they have inherent hand control. So, I think that's plenty better. Okay, let me explain the reasons. So I'm running 4 copies of Yamishibuki. Yamishibuki says rearguard circle during your turn. He gets plus 5,000 for each of his grade 0 rearguard circles. I mean grade zeros on rearguard circles. So by himself he's 9k. If you use his skill, he turns into 19. If you have a crit on board, he turns into 24. And then if you somehow manage to get another grade 0 out, he is a 29k attacker. The I'm not yeah, he is the biggest attacker in our deck, right after grade 3 shoot. And then his second skill is when he attacks Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, I counterblast one, choose a card from Rearguard Circle, add it back to my hand, and then I call 2 Shadow Army tokens to not Shadow Army, Evil Decoy tokens to Rearguard Circle. Uh Evil Decoy tokens are grade zeros. If you know this deck, I wouldn't have to explain it. They're grade zeros, they have 5k shield, but they don't have boost. So they're kind of in here for the defensive measure. So he translates strictly into aggression and technically hand. He does counter Naru hard because if Naru wants to get rid of your units in order to get effects, they have to get rid of the tokens. But if the tokens are there, they kind of feel bad since they're wasting resources on stuff that won't go to the binds. I love Yamcha. Good card. And then we have Magatsu Gale. Magatsu Gale says Vanguard Rearguard Circle on place, counterblast one, soul blast one, draw a card. He gets plus 16,000, 16, plus 6k until end of turn. He's a 15k attacker if you use his skill. He generates hand, very good card. And then he's like the first skill is a light version of Yamishibuki. And then the second skill is rearguard. At the end of battle to attack, I can put him into soul to choose one of my rearguards and bounce it back to my hand. That literally means if I have a card I need to guard with the next turn and I know I don't have shield value, I can just call it, have it as a booster for him, shove him in the soul, and get that shield value back to hand. Good card. Translates only strictly to hand value. Uh, I'll explain Sekiya later. We're on the ride fixers because it fixes my rides if I can't find my grade ones and if I have in my hand. I'll always use him. Just good card. And then his second skill is when he attacks and he's boosted on Vanguard or Rearguard, I Soul Blast one, and if my opponent has 4 more cards, they choose a card from the hand, discard it. Hand control. That's why they banned Sukumorikun. That's literally why they banned Sukumorikun. It's just light Sukumorikun. He's really good. I haven't had a lot of games as of recently where he popped up at all, but I still think he's worth running in here. Also, I do think you can bump him up so that you can add some more deck thinning. That's completely up to your deck preference. I run 2 copies of Sekie because I'm playing History Collection. Um, there's gonna be turns where, let's say, shoot, are your main way of finding units to like start multi-attacking with after your first grade 3 turn is going to be Shiranui's Obro's first skill to call something from draw. But because he needs something to have dominated, you won't be able to consistently have a unit on your history collection turn that will be dominated because it's never guaranteed that your opponent will rush. So after your history collection turn, this unit turns into a draw engine, a restander, and a beater. But for that first turn, he does nothing. I do think you can get away with playing the other one, but I do like that this lets me draw. I do think that draw is really important. Uh, feel me? I can't complain. And then the one of Ungai, I have Ungai in here as a one of because I don't know what to run him at. I do know I should run him because he's really good. He says auto rearguard, choose a card from your hand, discard it. When a dominated unit attacks during your turn, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, and this unit loses that ability until end of turn. So it's a draw engine. And then it says GB1, when this unit is placed on rear, choose up to 2 of your rear guards, one of your opponent's units, and the power of those units become, they increase or decrease to 11,000 until end of turn. So let's say, for Shiranui Obro's, Stride Dominate, if my opponent flips a trigger, okay, call Ungai, skill of Ungai, you're not 23, you're not 22, or 21, you're back to 11k, and my units are, buffed just a little bit. I think he's a good card. Would I run him at more than one? Yeah. Do I know what to run instead? Do I know what to cut? No, not at all. Um, my grade ones, oh, this is another proxy. This is Elementary. Oh, yeah. My grade ones, I'm not gonna lie. These are really weird. I do think these work out the best for how I built this deck in the upcoming meta, but let me just get to it. So we have three copies of Stealth Beast Magami, three copies of Stealth Beast Katsuraguni, or I don't even know how to say it. Two copies of Stealth Beast Tobi Itachi. I said that with an accent. Two copies of a Evil Stealth Dragon Gyokusen, one Stealth Rogue of the Night Sakura Fubaki, and then one Stealth Dragon Migetsu. Migetsu. It's not Magetsu, it's Migetsu. Anyway, right? So, um, this isn't a very conventional grade 1 lineup, and if I had my hands on unen, I would probably cut these to run unen, or maybe these three to run unen. Unen basically says when he's written over, reveal a grade 3 from your hand, search your deck for a grade 3 normal unit, add it to your hand, choose a card from your hand, put it on the bottom of the deck. Let's say I only have V Shiranui, I ride unen, I next turn I ride into a grade 2, just grab Shiranui from the deck. It's such a free card. And then my issue with unen is his second skill. He says end of battle he attacked. I can put the rear guard he boosted into soul to choose, I think, up to two of my rear guards and shove them back to hand. My thing is, when you run a token build like this, there's not going to be a lot of times where you will shove two back to hand. It's like, also, my main issue is Unen, sure he returns units back to hand, but that's at the loss of some shield value, which I really like that shield value. Shield value is really important to me because Nubatama doesn't have a lot of good G guards. So instead, that's why I'm running a what's his name? Magami. His first skill is rear guard, act once per turn, retire grade 0, and soul charge 1. One thing consistent about this deck is you'll see there's a lot of soul usage. We run what 14 soul chargers in this deck. So soul isn't too much of an issue, but sometimes it does. So let's say I have a spare token on regular circle, I could just retire it and soul charge 1. And then the second skill, which is why I run. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted your rear guard. Soul Blast went and basically returned this column back to your hand. So my thing with running him versus Unen is Unen will lose shield value because I think he puts himself or something else, I think it's the boosted unit into soul, but he simply says return the column back to soul. Me, that's like the sacrifices I don't get a lot of good ride consistency. Well, not even ride consistency. I lose some toolbox element of the deck, but because Mizukage is gone, it's a 50-50 on what I will get. And because I run, what, 5 searchers in here, I'm not too concerned. And then I have 2 searchers for the searchers. So I do think for now, until I get my hands on Unen, or I find a better reason to run Unen, this is probably the best option. And then we run 3 copies of Kasuragine. I think that's his name. He's a generic VR searcher. On place on van or rear guards from hand. Look at top 5. Choose up to 1 grade 3. Add it to hand. Choose a card from your hand. Discard it. And then his second skill that gives him power is Vanguard rear. Oh, it's rear guard only. During your turn, if you have a decoy token on rear guard circle, he gets +5. So basically, he finds grade 3s generically, and he is a 13k booster. That's really good. I also do like the fact that because I can return him back to my hand with other skills, he is infinitely usable. So I will always run him. Maybe soon like a 2 or a 3. Oh, he is at 3. Look, I'm gonna keep running him. And then we run 2 copies of Stealth Beast Tobi Itachi. He says a rear guard during your turn, if you have a token unit, all of your tokens get +5 and he gets +5 as well. So he turns into a 13k booster if you have a token. I forget that a lot of the time. I'm going to make it a point to start remembering that. And then his second skill, which is why you run him, he says if your opponent's Vanguard is the same grade as your Vanguard, this cost may be Soul Blast 1, may be paid with Soul Blast 1. Then he says when this unit is placed on rearguard or Vanguard circle, Counterblast one, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to one card with Shiranui from among them, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. It is a counterblast or a soul blast. Most of the time when you use him, it will be a counterblast. But I do think because of the fact that he translates into finding the Shiranui, who is pressure, soul charge, and draw, it's so worth it. Especially since it is a top 7 search, that's almost 1/5 of your deck. I don't know. I think would I bump him up to 3? No, because I don't have a way currently in this deck to get my token orders, my token units boost. But if I did run a boost engine, I'd probably bump him up to 3 and cut like Gyoku-sen. Anyway, he's good searching. Gyoku-sen. Gyoku-sen says drop zone when my grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, I counterblast 1. And what can I do? I think is one of the following. Oh shoot. He says when your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, counterblast 1, put this card into your hand, or choose a grade 3 card from your soul and put it into your hands. If you put a card from your soul into your hand, bind this unit. Uh that means I can ride him, soul blast him out with this Magatsu Gale or my ride fixer, and then after that ride into Obero. Next turn, keep him in drop zone, ride into Obero again, and then get back this Shiranui from my soul. That means I get back my inherent draw engine, I get back pressure. It serves the same role as Tobi Itachi. But why I mainly run him is because he says when he's returned to hand by a card ability, Soul Blast 1, call 2 tokens to Rainbow Circle. He's in here just so my Yamishibuki could get powered up. He buffs the shit out of Yamishibuki, and he also translates the shield value. So I do think 2 is worth it. If you're running 1, I do think you just like it's just drop it at that point. But 2 is what I'm comfortable with. And then we have the one of we have Elementaria. Elementaria is in my Tachi deck. I'm gonna explain this deck another time because I want to use this at a tournament, but that's not relevant. I ran one copy of the grade 1 Heal Guard and then one copy of Sakura Fubaki. Sakura Fubaki says auto on rear one place if you have 3 or more units, which also include the token units. Discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets plus 3,000 till end of turn. And if there are 1 or less face-up cards in your damage zone, draw a card and countercharge 1. Now, what that doesn't count is if you have a card in your damage. It says if you've 1 or less face-up card in your damage. So what that means if let's say I have 1 card face up already, right? I just call him, discard a card, give him the 3,000, and then just cause there is one face up card in my damage, let's say I'm at 1 damage, I literally just draw a card. He's hand recycler. If I have shit pieces in my hand, like if I have too many sentinels, just discard a sentinel, draw one. I think he's worth the one of because he also yeah, counter charge. Uh and we have the grade 1 heal guard. He's in here as another G guard card. I don't use his other skill because it's not that good. It basically just says one place on Guardian, remove a heal from hand or job, and then he gets what the fuck? Oh, he gets plus 5k, 10k for every 2 cards in your opponent's hand. I take back everything I just said. And if your opponent's hand has 4 or less cards, counterblast 1, choose one of your vanguards and it's 5 until end of turn. Uh, that first part of the skill is really good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know why I didn't fully read it until now. He's staying at a 1 himself. And then Elementaria. And then yeah, feel me? So for my trigger lineup, I am running 8 crit, 3 draws, and then 4 heals. And then I don't need to talk about the crits. It's just the history stride crit and the actual stride crit. Draw engine and striding engine. You can't go wrong with any of them. But for my OT, I have been debating playing purple OT, but Drag Veda restand on a Jakku Meso turn is so good, I'm not willing to sacrifice it. Also, hand value. It's if you get hand in Shiranui, you're not losing that hand. I'm telling you that right now. It's like you will never lose the hand. Um, yeah. And then for the G zone, I don't have harmonics on here. I'll say what I think you can cut. So we have 4 copies of Renee because what are you doing if you're not playing Renee? I learned that the hard way at BCS, but that's a story for another day. 2 copies of Jaku Meso because he works with the token engine. 2 copies of Mujin Lord. I'll explain this in a sec. And then 1 copy of Yotsuko Lord, and then 2 copies of our history strat. And then for my heal units, heal G guards, 1 flip G guard. What's this dude's name? 1 copy of Gandurotokan. I don't know how to say his name. 1 copy of Gehorokan, and then 2 copies of Mori Lord. Mori Lord? Mori Lord. Anyway, um, history strat I don't need to explain. Actually, I do. His on hit is that, well, it's not an on hit. It's just when at the end of the battle, your opponent chooses a card from their hand, discards it. Hand control. More hand control, the better. Do I subscribe to that theory? No. Unfortunately, it's true, and I can't argue against it. So, let me get to the G zone. So, I'm running 4 Rene because Rene translates into hand drip, crit pressure, and high power. I'm running him at, if I can run him at 2, I would, but he makes me flip up a copy of himself whenever I stride into him. So, I really can't run 2. This is debatably the best stride in this deck. Jaku Meso will come in times of clutch, but he is what you will go into if you want to kill, unless you have Mujin Lord in niche situations. On that note, let me explain Jaku Meso. Jaku Meso is why I run a lot of token engine in this deck. Well, it's just 6 cards, but I don't see a lot of Crest players run Jaku Meso anymore. So what he says is when he attacks, I retire 2 grade 0 rear guards on my side of the board. Flip a card face up my G zone. I draw 2 cards, choose 2 cards from my hand. Oh, return everything first. Return my rear guards back to my hand. Choose 2 cards from my G zone and from my hand, and then call them to rear guard circle. Then if I called stuff from my hands, he gets 10k in a crit. So basically, what that means is, let's say I have a Shiranui in my hand, but I want to go through a different attack pattern first. I go, let's say I call it Magatsu Gale, I draw 1, I go Yamishibuki on the other column for the tokens, swing, swing, make my tokens. Okay, go into Jaku Meso, swing with Jaku Meso, return the Magatsus to hand and the Yamishibuki, draw 2, and then call 2 Shiranuis out. In that turn, I'm effectively making, without drive checks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 card value, and then with drive checks, it's 9 cards in my hand. Enough said. This card is really good. I don't need to explain it. Anyway, there is an argument for why you don't need to run him. If you just focus on a lot more dominate, then I would understand. But I do think he's too good of a clutch not to run. And then we have 2 copies of Mujin Lord. Mujin Lord is the funniest card in this deck by far. He says, Counterblast 1, flip up a copy himself face up. Choose the same number of rear guards on my opponent's side of the board as the same number of face up cards in my G zone. What is it? And they all get +4 until end of turn. I stand all of those units and I dominate my I sling at my opponent's vanguard with those dominated units one at a time. So if I'm playing against a Victor player, what that means is what that mean oh wait, no. If I'm there's a lot of niche interactions with this card. For example, if I'm versing like Grand Blue or something, and they have a Skull Dragon in their job zone, okay, skill, call Skull Dragon a rear guard circle with Obero, and then I stride, swing at them with something else, and then after that, just dominate their Skull Dragon. What I'm trying to say is this card makes me attack my opponent like 6 times or however many cards in my G zone are face up, as many times as I want. Good card. I also do run him because I love the SP. Look at that glare. SP so nice. I fucking love this card. And then the last G unit is Yotsuka Lord. Honestly, I don't know what I should run in this flex. Ever since we had that Gatsurokan, This dude, oh, Sukumorte, I'm sorry. Ever since Sukumorte got banned, I'm just like, okay, Yatsuku what Yatsuku said is act Vanguard once per turn, counterblast once and soul blast one. Choose 3 unit cards from your opponent's drop, and your opponent chooses any number of them and calls them to Vanguard circle. Your opponent's card auto abilities do not activate from this call. For each unit that was called, your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and discards it. For each card you chose that was not called, you draw a card and all your front row units get +10 until end of turn. So this basically means one thing. Well, 2 things. It's almost the same thing. He says, okay, um, me take resource from drop. You can choose if I do. If I do, what is it? If I do, you discard a card, which equals hand control for every single one you don't call. If you don't call a card, I draw one, and my front row gets +10 for each card you do not call. Um, that +10 that stacks is really fucking threatening when you have the restanders out. Because your opponent's looking at your board, you have 2 restanders out that are gonna swing for 50k at the max. They're gonna swing for 40k on their first swing, and they basically have to call shit from their drop zone. I like to do it when my opponent has heals in their drop and they don't have a lot of damage. So I'll just be like, okay, call the heals. If you don't, what is it? If you don't, I will draw and you will have to guard against me even harder. Good card. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I would cut him or a copy of Jaku Meso for harmonics. Uh, I have harmonics and Tachis as well. I love Tachis. But for now, he's staying. I like him. G guards. So we have Moray Lord. She says she's almost the same wording as the grade 1 heal. She says when she's placed on Guardian, counterblast one, she gets 5k for every card in your opponent's hand. And then if your opponent has 4 or less, you CB1, draw one. So she roughly translates into, okay, I win either if you succeed or if you don't succeed. Um, it's like I'm not gonna say it's like a versatile stride ING guard, but it's there against OTT players and Night Rose players. So yeah, I think it's worth running it at 2. We can run one copy of I don't know his name. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it. He says dominate, counterblast one, soul blast one. When he's placed on Guardian, I choose one of my opponent's back row units. Great no, choose one of my opponent's back row grade 1 units. I dominate it and move it to Guardian Circle. That means that any ride fixer that has a multi-tag on hit skill, I can simply just look at it and go, no, we're not doing that. Call him, get rid of the ride fixer skill. Good card in this meta. We have I'm not gonna say his name. Basically, um, he's a 30k shield. He gets 5 if my opponent has. Let me read him. The number of your opponent's hand is 3 or more, he gets 5. And then if it's 6 or more, he gets +10. So he's almost the opposite of the first G guard, where if your opponent is succeeding, he will succeed, but the other one, the first one, does not want to see your opponent succeeding. And then the last one we have, I actually know her name. It's Zashi Kahime. She says on place GB2, flip a card in your G zone face up. Your opponent can choose a card from your hand and discard it. If they don't discard, she gets +20. So it's more hand control during their turn. And if they're low on cards in hand, they might not do it. I like to use it because it speeds up my Illusion Lord, and if I know I can make the game go faster, I will try to. Um, yeah. So that's the deck. I'll throw the link for it in the job zone in the description. But now that we have lost Shiranui, there's is more space for different decks. My favorite one right now is to play Hanzo or Daihozan. So Daihozan is strictly hand control. He says the only skill that you need to pay attention to is when your opponent's normal unit is placed on rearguard during your turn. Your opponent has 4 more cards. Your opponent chooses a card from their hand, discards it. This fucks over decks like Night Rose, Gurgit, uh, I want to say Victor a little bit, Narukami especially, because now they need to manage the resources to find your stuff and their hand resources. It's a good grindy game deck, but I don't think you could win games with it. And then my personal favorite build for Nubatama right now is Hanzo. This deck compresses like a motherfucker. But the only issue is if you don't find all of your Tasogaris in Soul, if you don't find like three or two before like your second stride turn, you play kind of slow. This deck will only work as good as you make your pieces work, which is why you'd run stuff like Forktail and unironically Ogijishi from D series because they all deck thin and you can choose a Hanzo from top five or top seven, shove it in the soul. You deck thin like a motherfucker. That's literally what this deck does. Deck thin like a motherfucker, multi attack like a motherfucker. Good deck. Um, yeah, Shiranui is my personal pick right now. I'm I might play this deck a lot. I don't really know yet. It's kind of stuck between Tachi's, Nuba, and Gear Chronicle. Gear Chronicle is still kind of finicky right now. I don't think it's like a. It's definitely a S tier deck if your opponent sees no triggers. I can say that much. Shiranui, I do think competes. Uh, does it have some consistency issues? Yeah, but it's only as good as you make it. And oh, I think I built it pretty well. I haven't had a G assist a lot with this deck. And then Tachikaze, I uh all I'm gonna say is there's a reason why in this toolbox, Tachikaze is the first card on here. So yeah. Anyway, what's the thing that YouTubers say? Like, subscribe, hit that like button, comment any questions, and I'll be sure to answer. And have a good day.